Hey, welcome to the channel. So I'm JT. I've peaked at 200 LP Master in North America, and I'm hoping to get to Challenger this season. And I've watched hundreds, if not thousands, of Korean Challenger replays and evaluated and analyzed all the different things that they do, trying to learn for myself what the best players do and why they're the best, how they find success in their games of League. And I've also made spreadsheets on different players' win rates, KDAs, kill participation, champions played, all of that sort of stuff. I've done my research about the game, and I want to share with you guys a lot of things that I've learned by looking at different players' replays, my own replays. I want to teach you guys how to learn from your replays. I just want to help people become better League of Legends players, along with my journey myself of trying to become a better League of Legends player myself, and trying to get to really high ranks in Challenger. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave any comments with replays you would like me to look at and review, different things that you noticed that you want to hear about, and always feel free to message me on Discord. You can check out my Discord in the link in the description below. Please join it if you're interested in free coaching, and hoping to have a good community there. And yeah, so enjoy the video. And welcome to my first laning phase review, or LPR as I'm going to call it. And in this series, I'm going to try to look at a lot of the best mid laners from around the world, and perhaps some other roles, but I'll probably be focusing on mid lane just because I do think of myself as sort of a mid lane specialist because I've played mid for so long, and I've been reviewing high elo mids for years. And I figured I would share that with some people who want to try to get better. I'll try to show my process of reviewing replays from some of these players, and I'll also make some videos where I teach you how you can look at your own replays, whether you're iron, bronze, silver, gold, plat, whatever elo you're in. I'll try to help you focus on things that you can improve, things that you can build on, and things like that, because I know a lot of people look at replays from high elo players and they wonder how they can get something out of that, because if you're a silver or gold player, you can look at these replays and you won't really be sure what exactly you're supposed to copy from them or why they can do things a certain way. So I'm going to try to help you guys understand this sort of stuff, and I believe that this sort of video can help people of any skill level, whether you're in low elo or whether you're a challenger player. Hopefully you'll be able to find something useful. Hopefully you'll learn something that you didn't know previously. So without further ado, let's get into this. So Xiaohu right now is ranked 2 on the Korean ladder. He's got some really impressive win rates, especially on Syndra. And part of this is because he's dealing with this support player who I assume is his teammate on RNG. But it's still really impressive to have such a high win rate, and his laning phase is definitely going to be really strong if he's getting this high on the Korean ladder. Over 1500 LP, 62% win rate. He's definitely doing something right. And let's take a look at what it is getting into this game. I'm going to be using this replay courtesy of Songbyum. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I couldn't get the replay to work straight off of OPGG, possibly because it's on a previous patch, 10.6. But no matter what patch you're watching this on, there's always going to be things to learn. Although it is definitely best to look at replays from the current patch because you want to be up to date on the current meta and things like that. So just looking at opening items, it's pretty standard for Ryze to start Sapphire Crystal and Refillable Potion because he just wants to get tier as early as possible. His early damage is still decent, but as Ryze you don't want to use too many spells because you'll run out of mana pretty quickly, and usually you just want to shove in that cannon wave. You want to CS the first couple waves, shove in the cannon wave, and get your recall. Hopefully it's a cheater recall, as LS has coined it. And that's somewhat difficult to do against a good Syndra player though, so he probably won't be able to get a free recall. But right off the bat, Xiaohu gets caught in a bad spot. You really never want to stand in this brush at the start of the game as a mid laner because you could get collapsed on from either side. Even if they just walk straight in like this, he's sort of in a bad spot because he doesn't know if someone else is over here. So I would definitely not suggest standing in this brush. I think generally the safest brush to stand in is this one back here. because you do want to watch your entrance, but you also want to be sure that you have a good escape route. So he ends up using heal just to be sure that he's safe. Oh yeah, and I wanted to take a look at his runes too. He had Nimbus Cloak there, as you can see, so he has the extra movement speed. But right here you can see his runes. Normally you'd see Syndra players go for like Electrocute and Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, and you know, just this domination tree, as well as Mana Flow Band Scorch or Mana Flow Band Transcendence. But this rune page has been popping up more and more. Phase Rush, I think, has the highest win rate worldwide in high elo, especially in Korea and EU West and North America. Phase Rush has been having really high win rates. And a lot of that, I think, is because Syndra already has a lot of damage, but she struggles a lot with safety. If champions end up getting on top of her, then it's difficult for her to do much. So I'll probably make a separate video discussing rune choices more, but just so you know, here's his rune page. Nimbus Cloak for extra safety off summoner spell usage. Presence of Mind generates a lot of gold value from the mana you get. Coup de Grace giving you extra damage when it matters. Sometimes you'll see people go with Legend Tenacity against a lot of point and click CC, but this is a really standard rune page for Xiaohu right now. He goes this rune page in a lot of games. I've also seen a fair amount of other good Syndra players going this rune page, this exact setup. And also, more commonly right now, you'll see this setup with Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic. So let's get into the gameplay and see how he ends up with this amazing scoreline up against ShowMaker. And mainly I'm going to be focusing on the laning phase. So yeah, this is what you want to do as Syndra. Be aggressive, play to your range. Sometimes you do want to get those auto attacks in like he just did, because Syndra will almost always win level 1 trades. Yeah, I mean, against 95% of the champions in League, if you hard commit to a level 1 trade as Syndra, you'll win. As long as you land your Qs. That's the important thing. So you'll see, you want to be really patient with your Qs. That's what Xiaohu does here. He lands that Q pretty much directly on the center of ShowMaker. And if you land a Q like that against an opponent who doesn't have boots, if you place it right on top of them, they pretty much can't dodge it. But yeah, he's definitely focusing on getting the CS. I'll see a lot of Syndra players skip out on CS to try to poke their opponent, and sometimes that's good, especially with Electrocute. If you're getting an Electrocute proc in to miss 1 or 2 CS, usually that's okay. But CS is what leads to consistency in your games, so you'll definitely see the best Syndra players prioritize the CS. So right there, you see he gave up 1 CS to get that extended trade. Even though he has Phase Rush, and part of this is just valuing the damage on his opponent over that 1 CS. So he got in a lot of damage there, and I know I was just stressing how much you want to get CS, but health is a resource. So by putting the Ryze this low in the early game, he can force Ryze to recall before he'll be able to forward tier. That's probably one of Xiaohu's goals right here, is to, I mean, when it comes down to it, as Syndra, you just want to land your Qs, right? So maybe he's not even specifically thinking, I want to make Ryze base before he can get his tier, but he's just playing Syndra the way you're supposed to play Syndra. He's just trying to land his Qs, especially when ShowMaker goes for a CS. And this is how you land skill shots on the best players in the world too. You try to land skill shots on them as they're going for a CS. So as we look back at this level 1, a lot of the time ShowMaker's just trying to inch up forward. Right here, this creep was low, so Xiaohu went for a Q poke onto ShowMaker. And then here, if Xiaohu can get in proper position, he doesn't even have to wait until one of his creeps is low. But going for the level 2 power spike, as Syndra, you pretty much always want to do this. I mean, her level 2 power spike isn't really as strong as someone like Lucian, but it's definitely up there. I mean, if you have Electrocute as well, you can sometimes get a level 2 kill. I was trying to see if this Q landed on ShowMaker. Because this is standard, you go for the QE combo. It sort of looks like it did kind of chip onto him. But one thing I want to point out, again, is Xiaohu sees that this creep is going to die. And normally, ShowMaker or whoever this Ryze is in this position is going to want to Q this. Or, sorry, not Q it, but he's going to want to CS it. So Xiaohu knows that he wants to walk forward, but Xiaohu is level 2 already. ShowMaker wisely steps back. He just wanted to get the XP from that creep. He didn't want to actually CS it. So ShowMaker is completely focused on just dodging this QE combo from Xiaohu, but Xiaohu's patient, and ShowMaker didn't leave himself very many options. When it comes to this space around the tower, if you're hugging the tower, you have less space to dodge because you can't walk into the tower. So Xiaohu being really, really smart there and patient, landing that QE. Focusing on his CS here. He's missed a couple so far, there's another one. But the main thing is that he's forcing Ryze off of CS. So he's giving up a little bit of his CS to make Ryze miss a lot of his. So I'm going to take a look at this gank again, because it does look like it's going to result in Xiaohu's death. Let's see what happens here. You always need to be conscious of this, especially if you're pushing in as Syndra. You need to be aware of the enemy jungler ganking, because there's so many paths to gank from. I mean, you could come from either of these brushes or behind them, which the Olaf does come from way back here. And Xiaohu doesn't have heal, so the Olaf is looking to punish that. The wave is in a really, really bad spot for Xiaohu if he's getting ganked, which he is. So he plays super aggressively. This is definitely not safe, walking forward and QEing the Ryze like this. So I think Xiaohu is just tunneling a little bit too much on this harass. He does have phase rush, which helps him to get a little bit of distance, but Ryze, with the point and click stun, he already had the E on him. So phase rush and flash, not going to be enough to get him out of this one. Especially with Olaf being a pretty strong early ganker. If he lands one axe, usually you're going to have to flash out of there. I mean, in general, you want to flash before the axe touches you. That's the thing with Olaf. He's so powerful early game, has a lot of damage. And Xiaohu ends up going down there. I keep wanting to click on the map, but then I'm remembering this is a YouTube replay. Yeah, so coming back into lane, the wave was slow pushing into ShowMaker, which is terrible for Xiaohu. Because all these red creeps were killing the blue creeps, and Xiaohu missed out on a cannon, he missed out on multiple melees, whereas ShowMaker is picking up all this XP. He is a little bit low, but he's going to have teleport to get back to lane. And essentially get a free reset. And Xiaohu's just looking to punish ShowMaker for being this low in lane. But he's not going to be able to get a kill because ShowMaker is, you know, not gonna die for free. So Xiaohu pushed the wave in to force out the teleport from ShowMaker. Now looking for a roam bot. Looks like health bars were low. Here's Olaf once again, but he doesn't have very many resources. Yep, Xiaohu played that pretty patiently. Olaf, I guess, just wasn't expecting Xiaohu to show up, but you can see once again, once Xiaohu gets this wave in, he has some free time. And looks for the roam. He's not super scared of walking in Olaf, partially because of the phase rush. I think he would probably be more scared of walking in Olaf if the Olaf hadn't just ganked him, because he knows that Olaf had to use resources for that gank. And he's also probably aware of some other information having to do with Olaf's pathing and stuff like that. But it's good to be proactive as a mid laner like this, and phase rush gives you that extra safety and roams. as long as you don't waste your E, then you should be pretty safe roaming around if you only run into the enemy jungler. I mean, depending on the enemy champion. If there's something like a Rengar, which could be in a brush, which could cleanse, you know, your stun and potentially run you down, that can be a bit scary. But even then, with Phase Rush, it can help you get out safely. So I'd say definitely consider taking this rune in your solo queue games. I know it's tempting to take Electrocute for the burst, but when it comes down to it in solo queue, usually the most important thing is just to not die. If you can survive ganks, if you can survive roams from the enemy support, and just play a consistent game, then you'll find yourself getting advantages or staying even against pressure, you know, just being a pressure sponge, and that'll help you win a lot of games. Like if the enemy support is roaming on you constantly and the enemy jungle is ganking you constantly, but they're not killing you, then you're going to put yourself in a really good spot. So yeah, we see a roam here from the Alistar, and Xiaohu has red buff, so they end up getting another kill. And just within the past minute and a half with this roam, Xiaohu gets 3 KP, a lot of gold, a lot of pressure for his team. Even though he started out with that early death, he pushes the wave in, he roams, he's looking around the map. He knows that it's not very likely he'll be able to do anything top. And yeah, he saw that bot was fighting, so he heads on down. This is why it's so important to be aware by looking around the map, having good map awareness. And the enemy Olaf saw the same thing. It's just that Xiaohu had full resources, and he cleans up the Maokai too. And then he was going to recall here, but he has red buff. He also sees that the Maokai TP'd back to lane. By the way, this is fasting Senna. That's why the Maokai is teleport, and he comes back to lane like this. So yeah, he's the one taking the CS, and the Senna gets to harvest all of her souls. So he chunks Maokai a little bit there. And really smart roam from Alistar, gets vision on the dragon, because Olaf can solo it early. And ShowMaker here, he's probably thinking that Xiaohu's going to be walking back alone, so he wants to hide in this brush to get a good trade because he has a level advantage. And he's got a good amount of mana, and the wave is pushed in a tower, so yeah, he just wants to all-in Xiaohu as he comes back to lane. But this smart roam from Alistar, I mean, this Alistar is only level 2, but he's there to offer up the CC and to make this a kill for Xiaohu. So now Xiaohu is firmly going to be in control of this lane. 3 kills, a bunch of gold, a red buff, and he's going to have I think he's going to have an XP lead now. Gets the wave mostly pushed in, that'll push itself in, but he wants to be available for his team because he saw that a fight was going on. So you want to be somewhat selfish, but you also need to be ready to help your team out. Like, he would not have left his lane if it was in a state where it was going to freeze for the enemy Ryze. You can see he gets it mostly pushed out. Whoops. So that wave is going to end up going into tower. So he's ready and available to roam for his team. And this is especially important in high elo Korea, like I mentioned. It's important across the board in solo queue, though, to be completely honest. Like, if you want to be the best solo queue player, you want to have really, really good game impact, really high game impact. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's important to win your lane, but you also want to help win your teammates' lanes too, including the jungle. Like in the early game, you want to be available to help your jungler if he gets invaded, because if your jungler gets invaded at like the red buff or something, and they die, and they lose their red buff, your jungler is going to be irrelevant pretty much for the whole early game, and the enemy jungler is going to be invading your jungler, and it's going to be a really bad experience. And those games are very difficult to win. They're not unwinnable, but there's a lot of issues that you run into in those situations. Your jungler is going to be tilted, because he got invaded, and now he knows he's not going to be able to have much impact on the early game. And your whole team's morale is just going to be down. And so basically what I'm getting at is, in order to have good game impact, you need to be willing and ready to help your teammates in difficult situations, even if that means sacrificing your lane a little bit, okay? You don't want to totally sacrifice your lane. Like I mentioned, you don't want to leave your lane in a frozen state. You know, you need to be able to do well yourself, but you also want to like kind of hold your teammates' hands throughout the game, especially as a mid laner. This is important, especially as a jungler, especially as a support. And to an extent, as ADC on top, you want to do those things as well. It's just a little bit more difficult to do. So, yeah. After Xiaohu got those 3 kills, this game is pretty much blown open. And for this LPR, you know, we haven't looked as much at the laning phase because a lot of this game has just been Xiaohu walking around. And this 2v2 goes really well for him because he has a lead, he just lands his abilities. That's what it comes down to. When you have a lead like this as Syndra, everything's a skill shot. And I mean, your skill shots do have pretty big hitboxes. You just need to make sure to land them. Take your time, land your skill shots, wait for your CC like he did with his Zac. Like if you know your teammate is going to CC the enemy, just wait until they do it. So Zac knocks him up, he knocks him up again with his Q. Xiaohu did miss his E there, but it was probably just to, you know, he wasn't sure if Ryze was going to die yet. He also probably wanted to push Olaf away from him a little bit. So not the best E there, but everything else was really well done. Gets that last little bit of Q. This is really important on Syndra. You want to be patient. If you know your ult isn't going to kill, you want to get that last Q in and then R right after that, because you get the Q damage and you get the R damage. And even a pro player like Glid, he still flashed a little bit late there. I guess he wasn't quite in range to flash the wall. And that's the most satisfying thing as Syndra, to get a kill with your ult as someone is flashing away. It just feels so good. So yeah, pretty low CS for this state in the game, but it doesn't matter because your CS depends on the context of the game. This is super important. I see so many questions on Summoner School relating to, how do I get 10 CS per minute? How do I keep my CS up throughout the game and all this sort of stuff, but most of the time in solo queue, that's just a pipe dream. You should not aim for 10 CS a minute. If you're doing that, then you are just being way too oblivious to the game going on around you. You have to play the game within the context of the game, okay? That's a big thing for League. It's a very, very dynamic game. In some games, yeah, there'll be farm fests and nothing really will be happening. It's very, very rare, like below Master Elo, for that to happen, but it'll happen, and you want to be able to farm properly for those instances. But most of the time, you need to be ready to roam and help your team out and give up CS and that sort of stuff. So now this game's looking pretty one-sided. Syndra is very fed. He just needs to make sure to use his lead properly. Don't die. He's got a huge bounty on his head, 500 gold plus, you know, the 300 kill gold. Ever since they changed the system, it shows just the bounty kill gold instead of the total kill gold on the bounty now. So he's worth 800 gold. And he's got flash ready to go. But he needs to be aware of the enemy Mias. Always watching his map. Especially against someone like Ryze when you don't have cleanse. If that Ryze gets in range and he flash EWs you, then you're rooted for 1.5 seconds. You know, you're stuck. So they think the enemy team is going to be going for Rift Herald here because he saw Ryze walking over and the Olaf is missing. And they do spot them out. Gets the stun on a ShowMaker before the Ryze ult goes off. Missed the Q, but the main thing here is just landing as many abilities as you can. He knows he's going to win the 1v1 because he's so strong. So he just gets ult off on a ShowMaker. And he's still being aware of the map. He sees that Darius is in a position where the three of them can come and kill him. So he traps them in by walking under tower and cleans up the kill on a Darius. And I know in lower elo, a lot of this stuff can be difficult to apply because, you know, people might be scared of diving the tower. They might not see this play as an option. But if you see the play, you know, you can spam ping it and you can go for it. If your teammates don't want to do it, like if they're pinging back and they're obviously not wanting to go for it, then yeah, back off. Don't be the guy that spam pings a play and then goes for it alone, and then complains that his teammates didn't follow up. Even though, like, your teammates should follow up, like, even though you're in the right, solo queue is not a place to have a strategy discussion. Like, if your teammates don't see the play, then that sucks, you know? Like, there's going to be some situations where you die for it, but just try to be aware of whether or not your teammates see the play. Oh, I think he missed. Okay, got the blue buff. And that's something too, if you're fed as a mid laner, you know, ask for the blue buff. Sometimes you have to be polite about it, like, may I blue, you know, do what you gotta do to get your blue buff, man, because, especially with a jungler like Zach, you know, see if they'll give it to you. If they don't, try to maintain your focus, you know, try not to get tilted off of the jungler taking blue. But some junglers just don't see the value in giving their blue, or they've lost their trust with their mid laners, that sort of stuff. Don't take it personally if your jungler doesn't give you blue. Just try to, you know, stay focused. So anyway, just looking at this fight, this is Olaf trying to remain relevant in the game, but Xiaohu and his teammates doing a good job keeping him irrelevant. That's the thing, like, the enemy jungler is behind, so they're trying to keep their lead and make the enemy jungler mid laner suffer. As you can see, they're down a lot right now. And looking at Xiaohu's build, Lost Chapter into Oblivion Orb. He probably got the Oblivion Orb because he had a big chunk of gold. Like, let's go back. Like, maybe he was thinking about GLP. But Oblivion Orb also gives you some health. He's just going for the full pen build. Like, Lost Chapter gives you a lot of mana regen. He's got blue buff. And yeah, I mean, I totally respect it. I think this build is good. I personally may have opted for GLP, but I'm trying to think, like, maybe GLP was just outside of his price range. I think it would have been in his range. I can't remember the exact combined cost, but you know, either way, this build is good. This gives him a little bit of extra HP against, like, Olaf, who's just gonna run at you and try to kill you. You know, you can't CC him, so the extra HP against Olaf could certainly be useful, just to make sure he survives, because like I mentioned before, he's a huge bounty on his head. So just moving forward in the game, does end up finishing that GLP. And from here, they're just gonna focus objectives. Olaf is gonna try to kill him, but I'm sure... Wow, he ends up having to flash. I think that's because he missed some skill shots. Okay, so W and E are down. And yeah, even though Olaf's behind, he still does a lot of damage. You gotta respect it. You don't want to die. Yep. And he waits for his opportunity, just like that. He gets the stun on Olaf, finishes him off. So yeah, I mean, this is a laning phase review, but I guess we might as well just see the rest of this. This is going to be textbook closing out the game. Even though he's low, he can still contribute. He knows Ryze doesn't have flash. He just lands all of his CC. That's why GLP is so good on Syndra, especially against immobile champions. You pretty much guarantee your stun landing. You get that long range GLP slow, and I mean it's really long range. It's got a huge hitbox. Finishes Merlinomicon against the team with a bunch of healing. So definitely worth here. And he's just gonna walk around and one-shot some people, I think. Doesn't even need to ult. Yeah. The enemy team is trying to claw their way back into it, but this game is pretty over. Yep, so that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'm gonna try to do a lot more of these because I don't think they'll be too difficult to do, and they should be really informative, and hopefully you guys learned a lot. So if you learned anything, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.